This is Fritz and Jane Neubauer, Sugar Pines Farm. Welcome.
It varies a little bit from year to year, but this year we're primarily planting Plug Plus 2 Canadian firs from Canadian Fir Tree Company, and also getting some Norway spruce and some blue spruce from Reliable Source from Jim Rockus. Those are Plug Plus 1.5s. And we're also going to get some concolor firs to plant as well, which we're just starting. This is only our third year planting concolor seedlings, so we're going to plant a small plot of those as well. In total, we'll plant about 3,000-ish new trees this year. That varies too. Last year that was over 5,000, but this year, just with what our layout is, about 3,000 makes sense. And then we'll of course get a few hundred extras if we need to pop them in to replace anything that didn't survive or fill in some gaps. No, we plant in blocks, so we'll do anywhere from 5 to probably up to 20 or so rows of the same variety. We do not interplant, so if something doesn't make it in a row, we'll put the same type of tree in there in that spot. Some of them we go and pick up and bring them back here, others get delivered, and either way our priority on those is to keep them cool. So we work with another farm down the street that has coolers that they allow us to do that, to keep them cool. And we make sure they're moist, put water in them, depending on how long they stay in the boxes. We'll go through each tree just to check to be sure that it doesn't have double leaders, that it's a healthy tree, that it doesn't need root, that if it needs a little bit of root pruning, we'll do a little bit of that on the bottom and some basal pruning just to make sure it's all ready to go. We don't use no root dips. We really just haven't experimented much with that. We do not put any fertilizer on the trees the year they're planted. We'll hand fertilize them the year after, but the year that we put them in the ground, our understanding is they're ready to go. They're from the nursery, so we just put them in.
Established.
Yeah, let them get established first.
Okay. But we are using a planter. We don't use an auger by hand. We use a planter, which is a 2-seat machine behind a tractor. And after we take numerous steps as far as the tilling, which we'll show you in a minute, the machine actually sets the tree and packs the tree in. And then we walk behind the machine afterwards and we straighten and we heel the tree in to make sure that they're in straight.
This is how we plant our trees with the planter. Your job.
My job is digging out roots from here, down by this wheel here, so this thing does not get clogged, and so we don't have to stop a lot.
Okay. This is a great angle right here because you can kind of see what we're doing right now. Every farm has a different process, but what we find works for us the best is what we call block planting and harvesting, which means we clear out a whole section of field. You can see here where we harvested this year, and now we're starting to grind the stumps out. And what that enables us to do is the planting and the maintenance of the trees after planting, we find is a lot easier and more productive if we do it in this fashion. So we're grinding the stumps out with a grinder. Then we'll subsoil to break up the subsoil underneath, and then we'll start rototilling this whole field. And then we can lay flags out for our new rows.
We put our rows 7 feet apart and then space the trees 6 feet apart.
Right, the flagging process is pretty important. So we'll flag the new rows with precise measurements according to what Jane was just saying. And then we'll till the rows where those flags are. And then that way, then we can apply lime to adjust our pH. And what that'll enable us to do is then till that lime in, which is better to incorporate that lime into the soil rather than just put it on the top. Then we will use the machine that I was talking about earlier to actually install the trees in those rows which were precisely measured out. The first year during planting, we do not use anything as far as herbicide or fertilizing the young trees.
So you're just mowing then
We're just mowing. We're mowing very close and very tight with zero turn. And we found also that when we do this complete renovation of the field, We also put a cover crop in, which we use clover and ryegrass. And what the clover obviously does is it helps with the nitrogen building, and then the ryegrass is a thick crop which helps choke out other invasive weeds. So between that cover crop and mowing really tight amongst the new trees, we found that we do not need to use any chemical application for herbicide.
What about as you move into years 2 and 3? What are you doing for
Then we
weed
do
control?
start. Yes, we do. We do that. When the trees are really young, even on the second year or third year, we kind of figure it out as we go as far as how big they get. We will do hand fertilizing with the young trees because we can have more of a precise location of the fertilizer around the tree rather than feed the weeds throughout the field. And then as the trees get a little bit bigger, like you saw earlier when we were in there, we use a Vicon spreader to fertilize, which spreads underneath the trees. But the first couple of years, we found that it's pretty important just to do that by hand because you can be more accurate with the amount that you're putting.
One thing Fritz mentioned that I thought might be worth giving a little more information about was liming. We do go out, and we'll probably do it this week actually, and take soil samples all throughout this field. We'll probably do a couple different, based on what type of tree we're going to put in each block. We'll do different, the zigzag style of collecting samples and send them into the lab to get specific recommendations on how much lime we need and what types of fertilizer we might need for the rest of the farm for the other trees. We'll do the samples out there for the fertilizer. We typically find our pH is lower than we want it to be, so this step of incorporating lime, I think as long as we've had the farm, has always been a necessary step at this point. Varying, depending on the recommendations from the lab, whether it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pounds an acre or something like that.
Also, one other thing I breezed over, which I think I should elaborate a little bit, is with this block planting and harvesting technique, we have found the maintenance of the trees is just a lot easier because, for example, we do use dormant oil. And as everybody knows, you can't have a blue spruce next to a Canadian fir, next to a Fraser fir, next to a Norway. You'll ruin the color of the blue spruce. So applying fertilizers, dormant oils, even shearing, for insect control, it is just a lot better to have your types of trees in a block. And we try to do normally 500-600 trees ish in a block, varies each year, but that way you can use your equipment on each variety of tree separately.
And if you end up with some sort of problem in one of those blocks, it's better to not have them all together so you have that problem in all of that species. We have started trying a little bit to apply lime to the surface on some of the other fields if that pH we're finding in the soil sampling is pretty low. I know it's not as effective, it's really hard to get it down in there, but we experimented with it last year on our 4 or 5-year-old trees and mixed it with a nitrogen fertilizer, and I thought we got pretty good results. But